pleasure to have you out there, and always a pleasure to be here. I've got the panel show tonight. We have some of the regular guests back again for more punishment. But they're holding up well. It's been going on for a long time, thanks to Dan Robillard. He's pretty much the producer. Rounds up the panelists, and well, they come in full of ideas. You might like them, you might not. But anyway, you're going to get what's out there in the city on this program tonight. And so, CJ, welcome back again.
Always a pleasure to be here. I've never been said it was full of ideas. I've been said it was full of something else, but never ideas.
We give you credit where credit's deserved. You're out there working hard, trying to find out what's going on in the city.
Well, Jack Anderson never sleeps.
No, he was a protege of Drew Pearson. So you come from a long line of inquisitive journalists.
People who just stir it up all the time.
Yeah, you're a TV personality, and
yeah. Well, we have fun. It's a you know, if it's not fun, you don't do it.
Okay, Dan, thank you for coming back.
Richard, nice to be back.
You take the bus up today?
Absolutely.
How was the trip?
Normal.
That's because there's no cabs available, right?
Correct. No taxis, so it's either serve a bus or drive on foot here.
Well, what's going on? Have you been at any of the meetings at City Hall, Dan?
Yeah, we were at quite an interesting ordinance meeting last night.
What happened?
Well, for the over 2 years now, there's been an accessible taxi ordinance tabled in the ordinance committee. The two cab companies are vehemently opposed. Vet Safety Cab has been sold. Fred Hume from Town Taxi, Yellow Cab, City Hall, we've had 10 names.
What are they opposed to?
They're opposed to requiring at least one vehicle that is able to carry wheelchair passengers, meaning that it's equipped with a ramp or a lift. But pretty soon there's going to be legislation from the federal government that's going to mandate they do it if Fall River doesn't do it first. So we'll see.
Were you there last night, CJ?
Oh, yes.
So
here's my problem with this, okay? 2 years ago, when Dan first brought this up to the city council, they said, well, there's nothing that governs this. In February of 2011, a lawsuit was filed by a gentleman by the name of Knoll. The case is Knoll 504 versus New York City Taxi and Limousine Company. It's 11 CIV 0237, I believe. And in that, the claimant, Mr. Knoll, said that there were no cabs that were available in the city of New York. Now picture New York, the size of New York, and the number of cabs they have. They have like 2,300 cabs just from one company.
oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean,
literally
you go down
thousands
the,
and thousands of.
thousands and thousands of cabs. You go down the streets of New York, there's like 2 or 3 cabs for every one car on the street. So this gentleman did it, and then United Cerebral Palsy, wheelchairs for wheelchair access.
All right,
for
so
all,
his
and a whole bunch.
complaint was
Right.
that there were no cabs available.
Right, and
handicapped.
New York City Taxi and Limo Company, under an order from the court, has a 50% conversion of their fleet to wheelchair accessible vehicles
50%.
by 2020. And that's being done, and this was issued in 2014. So that's only 6 years. And it's being phased in. And the way the order was written was so that as the vehicles aged out of the system, because in New York they have a lifespan on their cabs.
So the new cabs have to be.
All handicap accessible, up to 50%.
So if a company owns 1,000 cabs, 500 have to be.
Exactly. Now,
all right.
Now, Fall River is now, according to Her Royal Highness Medusa, when you look at the hair, Pamela Liberty LeBeau, is like, oh, well, maybe the two companies can get together and get one vehicle. And you have Mr. Hume who's saying, look, Mr. Hume, the gentleman who owns Town Taxi, City Hall Cab, and I don't know how many other cab names he's had. He turned around and says, well, you know, I can't get anyone to drive the cab overnight. And Danny made a very good point. He's like, who drives your cabs at night then? Nobody wants to drive that vehicle. Well, you know what? That's not the issue. And do you know how much that costs? That's going to cost me a lot of money. Da, 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 da. And I said, the law doesn't say that your rights to make a profit play into this. The cost is not something that they got to be concerned with. The law says you have to provide it. And this is a Title II complaint. Now, again, after 2 years, it had been tabled. They brought it up yesterday to once again table it.
Dan, what do you get out of all this? Do you take cabs? No, I mean, you can't.
I can't take a cab. I used to, before my accident in 2002, I used to take cabs regularly when I lived down on Canal Street. I went to all government meetings as I do now, and 90% of them were by cab. Today I couldn't get in a cab if my wife depended on it. But this is going to happen either by the city or by action or by the federal government. We will have accessible cabs, I'd say, probably within the next year and a half in Fall River.
Okay.
And the problem with that, though, is this. Once this case was decided in New York, Boston, Cambridge, Framingham, Worcester, Providence, they're all on board. All the cities across the country have started making their taxi fleets and limo fleets converting. Now, the cab owner turns around, I know, but the cab company owner turns around and says, well, I'll get out of the cab business, I'll just run limos. No, it applies to limousine services too. It's public accommodation.
Okay, DCM director. Apparently there's is it a worldwide search?
Well,
Or is it going to be someone's neighbor?
the problem with this is there are 2 members of the City Council Ordinance Committee serving on that search committee. The whole thing was a debacle. They originally wanted it 98. The mayor and the administrative team came back at 110. Now they've agreed to go back down to 98. Last night, Steve Camara made a motion for 80 that failed. So now we're back at 98, but it reads up to 98. They can't get the language right.
Exactly.
So, does, we're labeling this a DCM director. Did this department need another person, or could it have used an assistant?
No, this department...
Ken Pacheco.
We didn't even need to privatize,
Exactly.
in my opinion.
Right, and here's the issue. The mayor, the boy emperor, decided in his ultimate wisdom that he was going to divide the 2 departments. The reason for that was he knew that the termination of Ken Pacheco from his position would have had tremendous political fallout, and he didn't want that. So he created a whole separate division that he said, well, we're going to put school buildings and grounds into that position, until he found out, because I and several other people brought to his attention that the school department must maintain control of their buildings. Otherwise, the Massachusetts School Building Association doesn't grant you the loans. So you don't get 90% reimbursement. You're out of luck. So now all of a sudden we know that Ken Pacheco's position is just a figurehead position, because his department, building and grounds, has never had a dime dumped into it in how many years. Just look at the windows falling out of City Hall.
Well, and besides that, it was all buildings, city buildings are already encompassed within the Department of Community Maintenance.
That's right.
So he's already overseeing the position now that they took, split, created, and then of course there was a disaster with the previous director, Mr. Okafor. Although I don't think that's a disaster on him. I look at that as a disaster on the Screening Research Committee for not doing their homework.
Since when does anyone in Fall River do their job?
So was this in the very beginning a jobs program? In other words, for someone?
Yeah, these are all patronage jobs. They're all somebody who's related to somebody who's friends of somebody's friend.
Let me
or
ask
family.
you this: why wasn't the city council more aware of what was going on?
They're like the 3 monkeys.
They should have been aware. 2 members of the ordinance committee, Pam Liberty-LeBeau and Linda Pereira, were on the screening committee that originally interviewed Okafor.
How many on the screen committee? How many were on?
Oh, Kathy Viveris, Linda Pereira, Pam Liberty-LeBeau. So what's that?
That's
That's 3.
Yep.
Now,
There was actually 5, though. I think Ken Pacheco may have served on that committee.
Okay, I'm not aware of who the
Or
other.
somebody from Human Resource, but I
All right.
do remember that they had a few more.
Is there a new committee formed? Or
I
is
think
that
the same committee
I
still in
think it's the
existence?
same committee, now
And
they're
that-
just looking for applicants.
All right, so they're using the same committee.
But here's the problem. We have a city engineer who's retiring.
Byron?
Yes,
Holmes?
so part of this job description says that you gotta have an engineering degree. Okay? But Mr. Oakford did not have an engineering degree.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like Mr. Robinson in the neighborhood association, the neighborhood liaison. He doesn't have the requirements of the job.
What's
The
the
job-
requirements there?
He was supposed to have 5 years' experience doing community outreach into the community, not for a senator or a House of Representative member in Rhode Island. But that was
He's
his,
from Rhode Island?
he was originally working in Rhode Island. He worked for the state of Rhode Island.
Well, Mr. Long, under Mayor Flanagan, did he have the background necessary?
I
be
believe
the,
Perry had, I believe that the job description at that time for Perry, he did meet the requirements.
Well, but the job description was even in violation then, because
Right.
I believe at that time, the job description called for a Fall River resident.
Right.
Perry was a Westport resident.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another whole legal issue that came up. But the thing is that, you know, when we look at this, there's a city ordinance which says you must establish Fall River residency after you've been hired. Because the city council didn't have the backbone or the cojones to make it within 30 or 90 days.
What is it, a year, 18 months?
18 months.
Well, Linda
So-
Pereira, now you're telling me, and you're telling the people out there, Linda Pereira was on that vetting committee, the screening committee.
Right, and she didn't do her job.
And she, for years, has been advocating that people hired by the city of Fall River either live in the city or become city residents
Right.
soon thereafter. Now, was that applied to this?
No, the gentleman came from New Bedford.
And no requirement to soon after getting the job?
We
to
don't know.
become-
I mean, Faust Fiore was hired as a special assistant to the mayor. He doesn't live in Fall River. He lives in Marion or Mattapoisett or something.
So it really isn't something that's being...
No, because when you create an ordinance that says 18 months, and then the city council can grant a waiver,
So what good is the...
what good is the ordinance?
Yeah.
You got to do like Boston did and say, no, effective immediately, all employees in the city of Fall River must live within Fall River within 90 days.
And
If
late-
you fail to do so, you quit.
And lately, if we have a mayor that reaches to the 18-month...
Yeah, exactly. Because they're already talking about recalling them and doing section 37 to 41 complaints. and-
Okay, Dan, you know anything about those section,
Only,
those complaints?
only what my colleague CJ brought out at the last several panels, saying that there's recall pages circulating and
So where are these petitions? I haven't...
I have drafted, and I'm waiting for final clearance to release it, on behalf of a group of individuals within the city to override the mayor's authority, and I did put the mayor on notice that such a petition would be
So
served.
this is an override, not a recall?
Nope, this would override the mayor's authority to privatize trash. And the problem with that is the mayor's authority to privatize trash is covered under Massachusetts General Law 30B, I believe. Now, he can do whatever he wants with trash unilaterally. The city council must still fund it. So the way you do the end run around that is, you don't worry about overriding him on privatizing.
No funds?
You order that the city council not fund a private contract for waste
And
hauling,
how do you order that?
because you put it into a ballot question.
All
We, the voters of the city of Fall River,
And that, but
Yeah.
that's not an override, is it?
that is overriding the decision made by the administration of the city council.
Okay.
And
Now,
what you do is you place it in as a question that the city of Fall
you're
River.
gonna go through the process of the affidavit? Is this a taxpayer?
Nope.
No, okay,
Nope.
so
All
this
you
is-
have to do is file the petition with 3 registered voters who sign on as the original filers.
Affidavits?
And then
You need
7,500
affidavit? You
signatures.
need affidavits? All
Then
right.
7,500 signatures, presented to the city clerk and the city council within 30 days of the filing,
Wow.
not of the certification, of the filing. It goes to ballot, or the city council enacts it as written.
Well, that's an arduous task, isn't it?
No, not when you've got the people that I'm writing this for have the crew to do it. And I'll tell you now that several non-interested unions here in Fall River, the SEIU, people outside of the Teamsters.
Well, you got a point
the-
there, the Teamsters represent the sanitation workers.
right.
So I guess the Teamsters, the workers would be out there, might going in the right direction with
Yeah,
this?
you look at it this way, if you get
Collecting
75 people,
signatures?
if you get 75 people to go out and collect 100 signatures apiece,
You got
you've got
7,500.
7,500. If you get 100 people, it's easy to do.
Dan, what do you think of all this?
Well,
You've been involved in all these types of,
not a petition like this. This would be interesting.
Yes.
That,
you plan to get involved?
well, I don't know that I'd get directly involved, but I'll tell you this. I've come out publicly at Citizen Input against privatization, so I would certainly be against privatization. I am against privatization because I believe there's no savings in it, period.
10-year contract, what do you make of that? A 10-year
Too long,
contract?
very simple.
Yeah, way too long. Way too long. Because, number one, we don't even know what's going to be contained in this contract.
Okay, I agree with, it is, most people think it is too long. Why would the administration come up with a contract like that, probably knowing beforehand that people would be wondering why it's for 10 years?
Because the city has a contract with BFI, otherwise known as Allied, otherwise known as the old Fall River landfill, otherwise known as God knows what other names, that locks us in to waste disposal. All city trash must go to the Fall River transfer station at the Fall River landfill. Must. And we have to pay for that to them. That guarantees them 7 years uninterrupted.
Well, is that a contract, you told me?
That is a contract. And
when
the
was
city
that,
council,
when was that contract executed?
now Mayor, then City Councilor Jaisla Correa, agreed with that contract when he was on the city council, when they discovered unlawful, illegal dumping of city trash on the parcel of land immediately adjacent to the landfill.
Okay, but I think my question is, why is the city obligated to send its trash over there? What is there a contract?
Right, the contracts.
When was this contract signed, if you know?
2 years ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 years ago.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And that's when
2
the
years
city
ago.
was found, that they found that illegal trash.
And how long is that contract?
7 years. It was originally for 5, and then it was extended 2 more. And that contract is in lieu of paying BFI for capping the illegal dumping. BFI capped it, and they're monitoring it for the 30 years required. But BFI needed an income stream to cover that.
Yeah.
And that was it. So for 7 years, we're locked into that. So for 5 more years, we still have to dump our trash there.
So
this,
we're paying to have it capped, the
Right.
landfill capped, because we've got to send our trash over to them.
Right.
And of course, they charge us.
Right.
A city, when I say us.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happens is that for 5 more years, we have to dump our trash there. So easy disposal isn't going to make any money on the waste, the trash dumping, because the city has to pay BFI for it. Just like we have to pay Casella for the recycling and whoever takes out our yard waste. So they're not going to make any money there. So basically, they're just a labor. They're just labor, nothing else, because everything else is still on the city side.
All right, when you say labor, you're talking about easy disposal.
Easy disposal. They're just labor. They're just replacing the workers that we're taking off the city rolls and putting them onto the private rolls.
Which makes it more ludicrous that we're doing this
Right.
while we have other contracts still in
What do you
place.
make of this, Dan, of the sale of the sanitation trucks?
What I make of it is that part is absolutely ridiculous.
Give us a little synopsis.
Well, I mean, the mayor sold all the equipment for 1.2.
Hasn't sold it yet. but yeah.
Well, the proposed price is about 1.2, okay? And we owe something like 5.6 on the bonds.
Right.
Do the math. Does that make economic sense?
And actually, the assessment of those vehicles is off, because Mike Mioza, when he was on the solid waste task force, had those vehicles appraised back in September, if I remember correctly. And the amount of money then was much higher than it is now.
Well, the
think it was at
appraisal,
3.
I think the appraisal came in at $1,300,000.
Right.
Now, the deal with easy disposal is the sale of $1,200,000.
Or
which-
1.1, yeah.
Or one, okay, but they're gonna get like $100,000
Right.
Yes.
discount.
Right.
you know,
And the mayor thinks that that's a win for Fall River.
well,
I don't know what Matthew school went to.
who did the appraisal? How many trucks roughly, do you know, who did the appraisal?
He said the company name and I can't remember it.
Did this come out to the city council? The city council is asking these pointed questions?
Not at this
No.
level.
And you know, if they would, they'd turn around and say, well, how come Mike Mioza had this done in September on the solid waste task force, and the numbers came in the $3 million area, and in 6 months, they dropped in value by $2 million?
So is this a kind of a suspicious contract?
Of course it is.
In which
Of course
way?
it is. And that's why for 10 years, because for the first 5, Casilda's only going to get money for the hauling, the labor. After the first 5, then they start collecting for solid waste disposal, recycle disposal, and all of that. And that's when they're going to get gouged. And this is what people don't understand. We can't do this piece by piece. It can't be done by piecemeal. You have to turn around, and I made this recommendation to the mayor. I made it to 2 mayors now. Trash is always going to be the mayoral downfall. And if you don't do it right away, you're dead.
Well,
Pay as you throw, pay as you
when you
throw.
say mayoral downfall, rainwater tax,
Gone.
out the door.
Purple bags,
Out the door.
$10 fee.
$10 fee, out
out
the
the
door.
door.
And now this guy is privatizing with no proof of savings, okay? He's still keeping the purple bags. So remember, people, you didn't want the purple bags
So-
before, you're still stuck with them now.
Is that the kiss of death?
Yeah, those purple bags are the kiss of death. And here's what he doesn't understand. I told Sam this, I told Jazel this. You issue an executive order, you can do this under 30B. Effective July 1, 2016, or 2015 under Sam. The city of Fall River shall no longer handle, manage, or operate solid waste management functions. All functions regarding solid waste management shall fall to the individual property owner who shall contract a private vendor. Failure to contract a private vendor will result in Department of Health violations. End of line.
No, it didn't.
Then,
But the enforcement part,
that's what, it falls into the Department of Health. Okay, then what happens
they
is,
can't even collect a pay-as-you-throw fine. I
Exactly.
mean, that's going on for what, 2
2
years?
years. Now, but here's the
And
kicker.
you have a person who ran for mayor, and he told the sitting mayor during a debate that he's never bought a purple bag.
Right.
And he told the mayor point blank, looking right at him,
Find me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it never was done.
Nope.
So, in other words, the theory of how this can be managed and how the fees can be collected is one thing, but the enforcement and collection seems to be a problem,
Well,
Dan. No?
And enforcement started on Monday.
Yeah,
On Monday, they started strict enforcement. I want to know how many tickets were issued so far.
Well, here's the question, and you just raised it. How many tickets were issued? And more importantly, how many are going to be paid?
Right.
How many are? And I'm sure that
And
a
I
few of
believe-
these will end up in court.
Well, I believe this still goes to housing court for an
Right.
appeal. So, and of course, that was the mantra of their excuse, why there was really no fundamental fining done from the inception of the program.
Okay.
Because they claim that the courts were dismissing everything.
We're gonna nominate you right at this time as a judge of the housing court sitting, and a complaint comes in by the city and said, we want this guy fined $200 because he's not complying with the ordinance. What does Judge Robillard do?
I'd fine them
Okay.
if it was proven that they deserved the fine.
Okay, so
And here's the problem. The city wants the landlord to act as the rat think,
Yeah.
oh, that's
okay?
yeah, that's a part.
Okay? They want
Explain-
the landlord to turn around and turn in their tenants.
Explain-
Because if they don't, and we give you 2 fines, we're not gonna collect your trash. So you're gonna have to privatize it anyways.
Okay, give us a little. Is that the explanation?
Yeah, that's what it is. Because if you get 2 or more violations on your property, the city has the option to stop collecting your trash.
And so, if a person owns a 3-decker and he's got a recalcitrant tenant on a 3rd floor who says, I'm not going to ever put my trash in a purple bag.
Right.
I wonder if that's legally enforceable.
Well, that's what they're gonna do. That is what they're gonna do.
I know they're gonna try it.
Right.
Well, you know, you got a good point there, because theoretically, that's not the landlord's trash.
No, it's not.
It's the tenant's trash.
Right. But, and that's what the
And
ordinance
so-
says. The ordinance says that the fines can only be assessed against the producer of the trash.
So what do you do, Judge Robillard? You get a case like that, the landlord says, you know, Judge, my third floor tenant, that's his trash. He's the producer, not me.
My guess is, Richard, the enforcement is gonna be a nightmare, and that they won't be able to enforce it
No, they
the way they think.
Right. And I firmly believe they're not going to be able to either. And the problem is that you've got three issues going on right now in Fall River that people are very much aware of. Number one, they still believe that the pay-as-you-throw program, while it is legal under mass law, okay, they believe it's not legal in Fall River.
Why?
Two reasons. Number one is implementation. Number two is the ordinances, the way they're written. And I agree. Because the state actually
Okay,
came out with a book.
What's wrong with the ordinance?
The ordinances were written in such a fashion, according to these people, that they don't judge a situation. There's no proof that needs to be provided to find somebody.
No, whoa.
And that's why the housing court kept throwing them out, because,
Won't the proof be, the trash is in a white bag and not a purple bag?
but if you have three tenants, how do you tell which one generated that bag?
Well, that's a problem.
And-
There, but they're gonna, then they're gonna put it onto the landlord.
Right, but also, look at it this way. I put my trash out, and I privatized my trash. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I hear cars pull up to my property,
Yeah, but get
and they
back.
throw their trash in my bin. Now,
Okay.
if I'm using city
Yeah, but
trash,
Get back to what I just said, though. If the bin holds a white bag,
right,
it's gonna be the landlord's problem.
they won't be able
they
to
don't
find the
care what-
landlord, right, they won't be
They
able
don't
to
care
find
if the bag was put in by a
Right.
passerby or on the person on the third floor. Do you follow me?
Oh, no, I understand, but the thing is this, that they're going to fault the landlord, and that's why they're sending the notices to the landlords as well. And then what really gets you going is, and I've looked at the case law on this, when the city created an ordinance this past year, under Terry Sullivan's direction, to make every city property in the city be required to have city water and sewer, they've taken that out of a choice, therefore forcing it to be an action, therefore creating a new tax. Because the people up off of Meridian Street had dumped money into water through springs and septic systems. And now they have to, not they should, they have to convert over to the city water and city
Okay,
sewer.
we're getting off the subject.
I thought, though, if you, that you only had to have the two if you wanted one.
Are we getting off the subject, though?
No, we're just talking about the fact that they don't know what they're doing,
All right.
okay, and drafting these ordinances, because they're city councilors. They're all city councilors.
They're not
And they
lawyers.
all want 2 cents into everything they say, because they gotta protect themselves.
Well.
And the Pereira
but
principle
we-
always applies.
Yeah, the city has a law department.
Yeah, right, well, what a joke that is.
All right, we're at the end of the program. It came pretty quickly. I didn't quite expect it, but gentlemen, see you in 3 weeks.
Thank
Good
you, Richard.
program, a lot of
Thank
good
you, Richard.
information.
Thank
I
you.
know you're out there, beating the bushes to get every little detail. So thank you out there for watching, and I'll see you next time. And remember, 3 weeks from now, we get the panelists back on.